Welcome to the MPG podcast, where your host John Graybeal talks racing, driving, training, and cars with Team Stradale driver Jordan Missig. And now, here's John and Jordan.
Well, Jordan, welcome to the MPG podcast. Missig Performance Group, thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about your day today. What were you doing today?
So today we were driver coaching out Team Stradale. Today we had a guy come out to driver coach with him. He was driving the SR1 Radicals and the Mazda MX-5s. So just kind of the first off, what we did was just kind of go on the Mazda MX-5s and just get kind of used to the track and just, kind of go around and just familiarize ourselves with the track, the layout of the track and everything else. Then after that, we kind of just, motion our way into the driving line, understanding what every part of the track means, where to be fast, where to be slow, understanding like the whole layout of the track. And then finally, by the end of the day, we were able to jump into the SR1s, which is a smaller version of a Radical, the smallest version of the Radical that you can go. And we were able to jump in there and just kind of test the waters, test the speed a little bit, and just kind of build the speed and kind of feel how the G-forces in the car are feeling.
So the SR1's a single seat. So are you doing lead follow, or how are you doing? Are you just on the radios with him? Or?
We're doing lead follow, so he's following behind me, and I'm running my line, and he follows behind me, runs his line. We kind of keep him between third and fifth gear. We don't want them going down to second normally, so they're not spinning the tires and causing themselves to spin out. So we just kind of try to keep them in high gears at the beginning levels, so that way the RPMs are pretty low when they come out of the corners, and they're not likely to spin out as much. But yeah, lead follow, so basically just follows my line and just kind of understands where to be, where to put the car every corner around the racetrack. And they tend to do better when they do lead and follow rather than just let them go on their own.
Oh, interesting. Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy doing the coaching? And
I do enjoy doing the coaching because once we get them up to speed and kind of get them accumulated with the track and the car, they tend to, they'll tend to pick up the speed a little bit. And then that's where the real coaching begins, is where we start teaching them about brake pressure, where to get back into the gas, where they're losing time. So, when they start to really, really pick up the speed, that's when the real coaching begins. Because we're teaching them the line, teaching them the gears and everything, that's all the fundamental stuff. It's like baseball, learning to hit off a T-ball or something like that. That's all the fundamental stuff that you learn when you're young. And then once you start to understand the sport and you grow, then you start to learn the actual game itself and start to learn the actual context of racing as a sport.
Interesting. Very interesting. That's pretty cool. I have visions of myself getting in an SR1 at some point. We'll start off slow though. So tell us about had a big league kart race this weekend. Do we want to talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Why not?
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start up the kart race. So the kart race this weekend, shockingly enough, it wasn't our best one. We'll say that. It wasn't our best race. We came into the race, trying to be as fast as we can, and we were on second or third quickest the entire time. One of the members named Joe Moser came around, and, the rain race we had the week before, he had my number because he had the right gearing. This time, I think he just had the better kart and just flat out had the better track position and a better kart and was able to work with the draft and everything. So, for us, we were just kind of playing catch up the entire day, kind of wondering, what was going to happen. We felt like we were faster at some points. We felt like we were right with him. At the end of the day, we ended up being 2/10 slower. So, I think we could possibly see something changing with the karts here coming up a little bit, especially our karts, so we can see that for sure to come about. But the race itself, we started off qualifying third. We ended up qualifying third, about 2/10 off of Joe Moser himself. AG Squires qualified second in front of us, and the pre-final race was very interesting. It got I wouldn't say a little hairy, but we had to flash the elbows out a little bit. We will say that. Some moves we had to kind of rough some fenders a little bit, make our moves go happen. I will point out one part that happened in the race was Joe got a really bad exit off of turn one, and we had a really good exit to where we were actually able to get beside him. But then Joe decided to going into, I think it was turn 3 at the top of the hill. For those the kart track,
Yeah.
it goes into a left-hander, and at the top there's a top of the hill, which turns into like a little hairpin. He just was taking the normal line and going wide, while we decided to open. We saw that. We saw the door. I saw the door open, I should say. And as soon as I saw that happen, I decided to throw the nose on the inside and kind of rough him up a little bit, try to push him out of the groove and try to push myself through. And ended up working. I was able to get beside him. Problem is, if you get beside him there and you go side by side, the next corner is a right-hander. So
right.
He has the preferred line. So what I tried to do was over under him and I should say cross him over to where he's going to slide up and I'm going to be able to go to the inside and have the shorter line, the shorter track position. Unfortunately, with these karts, it's all about momentum, and he's able to get into the throttle faster than I am. So he was able to keep his momentum up and be able to stay in front of me as we went into the long right-hander down the backstretch. So that was the one shot I have for the lead. And then after that, all my momentum was kind of lost. A.G. Squires poked his nose to the inside and was able to get past me because I lost all my momentum. And then he was able to catch up to Joe, but it wasn't able to do anything with it. So, we were just kind of logging the day around in third and just kind of hoping for the best for something to happen up there to where we could catch back up.
Yeah, I agree. My son, who's runs pretty quickly, generally out there, he was struggling all day long. We got him a new kart this past week, and he was just struggling. We were making massive adjustments all day long and doing better, making correct adjustments, I think. But yeah, he ended up in third place too. It was just a weird day for us. Not just in trying to take care of the kart. I actually did an engine change. I think it was the first engine change in the middle of a race. It was just a weird day for us. That's all I got to say. It was interesting. This week, so last year you were so Ignite karts are a spec model kart out of Margay. They make them down in St. Louis. So we're all running the same kart. And this weekend is to recap, you were the champion last year. You were the Ignite Challenge champion. There are several races in Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa that run these spec karts, kind of a traveling race. And you were the league champion or series champion last year. This year, due to your radical racing, you haven't been able to get to all the races, unfortunately, to defend your championship. But you got radical racing, so that's a good trade-off, I think.
I'm not complaining.
That's a pretty good trade-off. But this week is a new setup here at our home track at the Audubon Country Club. New setup, and the Ignite Challenge is here. So what are you thinking about this weekend?
I think for this weekend, all the Audubon members who are going to be racing in this race have not only full advantage, but we're running the full circuit now. Like, we're actually running with not only just the extension, but we're running with the skid pad. Now, all the Margay guys who came last year and the year before, prior to that, have run the skid pad. So we're all level playing field with that to know what the skid pad is. But now they don't know the extension. They're only going to get 3 practice sessions to understand the extension, is what I hear. And we're going to be, have the full advantage to understand what the extension's about and what the backside of the the skid pad's all about. The only thing that I think we need to worry about is the transition from the extension onto the skid pad. That's what's really going to be our learning curve for this week and going into this race. I think, me personally, how we switch gears, somehow some of us have changed gears to go with the extension. I think for this race, when we're going to the skid pad, I think we're going to have a lot more gear changes again going into this. I think you're going to see some people revert back to the old setup from last year, because it's going to all depend on how you get off the final corners.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. We have, with these karts, we make gear changes, clutch changes, and tire pressure changes. Really, we can adjust the front width of the tires easily, and the little bit of the rear width of the tires not as easily. So yeah, that's an interesting thought process going in there. So how do you approach a kart? I believe is a very technical racing machine, even though it's one of those few things we talk about. But I think it's very difficult to get it set up right. When you're working out there, what's the first thing that you kind of look at? Do you look at the gearing first, maybe the tire pressures first? How do you kind of look when you go, like, this is going to be a new track for us all? So what do you look at first?
So the first thing, I'll kind of go through my thought process of when I go onto a track. So my first thought process is, the first couple laps, you're not really going to be getting up to full speed. So the first couple laps, maybe find out when and where is when the tires start to grip and when the heat starts to get into the tires. So maybe like the first 2 laps, is it going to be lap 2? Is it going to be lap 3? That's my first thought process, is when are the tires going to get warm? Once you find out that the tires are warm, you start looking a little bit at lap time and looking at mechanical wise, seeing, all right, am I hitting the rev limiter at this point? And I should be hitting it here? Am I hitting it here? Then you start to work on setup a little bit. And then after that, you start to work on consistency. After you put down a time, you start to work on consistency, as seeing how many laps can I do that time over and over and over again, or stay close, or even get better. So you kind of just start to see where you're faster at, where you think you're slower at, and where you think you need to work on. And then the last part, I think, for me, is when tire fall off and when the tires start to overheat a little bit. When the tires feel like they start to lose grip. When do you feel like you're sliding more than you're gripping more? And that's normally around, the end of your run, which will be lap 15, 16, somewhere around there, will be when the tires will start to fall off a little bit. So then that's where your main aspect of where the run ends is when the tires really start to slip. And that's when you start have to drive the kart a little bit more.
So when you feel the kart slip, or a car, is it really slipping, or are you just feeling it? Does that make sense? Do you just feel that they're getting loose and it's not in contact, or is there actual physical movement in the kart? Or can you tell that fine line between them?
In a car, yeah, you can tell a difference between a kart and a car, of course. Car-wise, you're going to feel either the rear end want to come around and get oversteer, or you're going to feel like the front end's not going to want to turn as you were earlier. So you'll get understeer, I will say. The front end's going to want to start pushing. In a kart, it's different because you will feel the back end either starts coming around, so that's still there. But really, you're going to feel the kart sliding more, because you're going to go through a corner and all the weight's going to go to one end of the kart. And normally you'll feel the kart, like you'll hear the tires squeal, of course, but you're going to normally feel an end point to where the kart's going to stop sliding and it's going to start gripping again. Whereas if the tires are starting to wear out and they're starting to overheat, the kart's just going to continue to slide a little bit extra, even though you could be going into the corner at the exact same amount of speed and pace. The kart's going to slide a little bit more out of the line, whereas maybe you want to stop, it's going to go maybe out to the rumble strips at the end, or even slide off the track almost. So that's when you can feel like the tires are starting to overheat or get a little bit higher in pressure.
Okay. All right. And then is there a lot of time between bringing the kart in? I mean, I understand that the tires cool off fairly quickly when you get it off the track. And especially, I guess, with these karts, they're we bring them off the track, we lift them up on a cart, so the airflow across all the wheels is, it's not in contact with a 100+ degree.
Yeah.
I was going to say tarmac, but that's a little ramp. Okay, so I fly too many airplanes. The road surface, or the pit surface.
Yeah.
I should
the
say.
Track
yeah,
surface
this track surface, the asphalt. So, I think that's interesting how you can tell. You're able to tell that. So first thing we're going to work on is the tires, and then are you going to work? Start talking about the gearing probably after that, or is that kind of how you look at it?
The first thing you really want to do before if you feel like there's more speed out there and you're not getting enough, you can tell really right away which one's, not working properly. It's either going to be, if you feel like the gearing's right, then you're going to work on more mechanical, because the gearing's right, so you're going to shift over more mechanical. But normally when you get to more mechanical, you're going to feel the gearing's off if it is off. If the gearing's off, that's like one of the first things you're going to notice. And that's one of the first things you're almost going to adjust before you even get to setup, because there's no point in adjusting the setup of the kart if you're not hitting the right gear yet and you're not putting the kart to its full potential. So I feel like the gearing is the first thing that you need to get down, and then once you figure out the gearing, then you can start worrying on setup. So understanding, like I said, the gearing first is mainly what's important.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this week, quite a lot of racing. For the Ignite Challenge, it's going to go a long day. I mean, this last Saturday, when we left the track, it was 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So
it was a hot one last Saturday.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah, it was by far the hottest that we had raced in. My son and I had raced that day, but it was the hottest day that I think we'd been out there. And how do you address let's talk about that a little bit. How are you addressing the physical challenges? You know, I know that we don't, or drivers in radicals don't have cool suits like they might have in a GT car, which a cool suit is just pushing cold air basically through a radiator shirt, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you address are you, obviously we all know hydration is important, but do you hydrate early, before you go out there? Are you trying to stay ahead of it? You're trying to is this start real early in the day? Are you looking at I guess let's start. Let me slow down for a second. How soon are you looking at the weather? Are you looking at the weather a week out, a few days out, or how soon do you look at the weather?
For a couple of races, you may want to look at the weather 2 days before. I want to say 1 to 2 days before the weekend starts. You want to see the weather of all 3 days of what it's going to be, and then start planning based on that. And then you're going to decide, when, if it's going to be a hot one, if it's going to be a cold one, if to hydrate a lot, if not. But then a lot of it also has to come into effect of what time your race is taking place. I mean, if your race takes place around lunchtime or a little bit after, some drivers, conspiracy theory think, if you're going to eat a little bit, you're going to gain weight. So people will purposely fast a meal just to do the race and then maybe eat afterwards. I know a couple of people were trying to do. I personally, when we were like last week in qualifying was at 12:50. Some drivers ate beforehand. People like me ended up eating after qualifying and just kept the weight itself, and then ate afterwards before the race, because that way you get the lightest possible you could for qualifying. So, and especially in karts, the littlest meal you can have is going to gain you 2 to 3 pounds at least. So if you're right there on the border, having a meal before the race will help you a little bit in weight wise, but you have to also, it's another variable that comes into effect that you have to contemplate about.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't think about that. And of course, do you have are you a water guy? Are you a Gatorade guy, or what do you like? What are you hydrating with most of the day out there?
Now, this is a interesting question that you bring up. Me personally, I'm actually a person who will drink water first, drink about half of it, then grab myself a Gatorade and then mix the two combinations. So
Okay.
I will actually unscrew do some water and then put half a Gatorade in it, then shake it up a little bit to get both the chemicals together. And then it's basically watered down Gatorade, which I feel like is the best of both worlds. So that's my thought process, really.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So after this weekend, we got the kart racing this weekend. There's no you don't have any other racing going on Sunday, do you?
Sunday, there is a radical race Sunday. We are pulling double duty this weekend. We are going to be practicing on the kart track Friday, going to be racing on Saturday, and then we are doing the radical race on Sunday.
And what number radical race is this for the year?
I think this is race number 7 or 8, something like that. I think it's race 7 actually on the list. Yes, race 7.
Okay.
For the year.
And so is that North track, South track?
It is South track this week. So we'll be racing on South track. Some of the Margay guys are actually planning on staying to watch the race too, because they think it's going to be an interesting race as well. So some Margay guys will stay to watch the radical race on Sunday. So no pressure here.
Yeah. Well, we'll have Margay racers coming in from. I'm gonna hit some lights here. We have Margay racers coming in from all over. So
all over. We got some guys from St. Louis, some guys from Iowa. We even have some guys coming in from Nebraska, is what I hear too. So
oh wow,
we'll have a lot of karts, is what I hear. I think we're gonna have somewhere between 30 karts for Ignite Senior Race.
Well, that's pretty good.
Interesting.
Not the biggest you've been in, probably, right? I mean,
No.
probably over in Indy,
No.
I think there was 52 in your division.
Indianapolis was 52 karts, so
Yeah,
that was an
that's
interesting race
crazy.
itself.
So, so Radical racing this weekend, and so you'll start practicing Friday. Will you run it at all practice Saturday for the kart race, or will you get out there and practice at all?
I don't think I should be practicing at all for the Radical race on Saturday until Sunday itself, because I think I'm going to be practicing on Friday for the kart race. If anything, I may jump out in a session or two for Radical, but mainly be focusing on karts on Friday, and then the Ignite Challenge race, which is going to take all day Saturday, because they actually implemented a new system for the Ignite Challenge this year, because now they're doing practices, qualifying, and then instead of a pre-final, it's just straight double feature racing. So we have two finals.
That's right.
15-lap finals.
Yeah. Interesting. So, I wish you the best. Best of luck out there, both Saturday and Sunday, and best of luck to all the other Autobahn racers that are going to be participating. So, I guess we'll try to visit next week and see how everything went.
We'll see how that goes, and hopefully we'll be able to have an Autobahn member either on top of the podium or have an Autobahn podium, because we're tired of getting beat by all these Margay guys every year.
Yes, let's get some guys on the podium. That'd be fantastic. All right, Jordan, thanks so much.
Thank you, John.